So we're looking at completing the square where we're changing the standard form we have into vertex form. Now this is technically lesson 4.2 for you guys. Okay. Just so you're familiar with it, what we'll do is we'll do the opposite right now, which is changing vertex into standard just as a refresher. But that'll be relatively easy to the other way. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a vertex form, and this will be our first example. And I'm going to change this. This is going to be in vertex form to start. Negative 5x minus 3 squared plus 46. Okay, so this is in our vertex form. We're going to change it to standard form. Do you know what I would do first in order to do this? If you look at the brackets, they're squared, right? So that means we're going to have to actually duplicate x minus 3 times x minus 3, okay, plus 46. So when we're doing that, we're going to have to FOIL. So we'll get negative 5. And then we do the first term, so it's x times x. Okay. Then x times negative 3. Yeah, negative 3x. Negative 3 times x. Yeah. And then negative 3 by negative 3. Yeah, positive 9 plus 46. Okay. Now before I can drop those brackets, I have to distribute. Okay. We have to distribute, well actually, before I do that, I'm going to simplify the brackets. So we have negative 5x squared, negative 3x minus 3x. Yeah, negative 6x. That's alright, plus 9 plus 46. Okay. Okay. So now, in order to do this, we have to distribute our negative 5. Okay. So when we go to distribute to negative 5, we get y is equal to negative 5 times x squared. Yeah, negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times negative 6. Plus 3. Yeah, that's right. Plus 30x. And negative 5 times positive 9. Negative 45 plus 46. We simplify the last part, we get negative 5x squared plus 30x. What? Not minus, but plus, yeah, because the positive 46 is larger than the 45. Okay? So what we've just done there is we've changed our equation from vertex form into standard form. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the opposite. Does that make sense, the first part there? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take the same question we had before. And when we looked at it, we're going to take our final answer there, negative 5x squared plus 30x plus 1. Okay? So we have y equals negative 5x squared plus 30x plus 1. Okay. Now what we're going to do is the opposite of what we did before. We're going to take what's in standard form right now, and we're going to change it into a vertex form. Okay? So we have our vertex form over here. Now, one of the reasons you would do this is if you're in standard form and you want to find what the vertex of the parabola is, this is a method you can use, right? Now, there's a strict amount of steps you need to go through for this, so we'll go through slowly. To start off, what we want to do is we're actually going to be dividing only the first two terms in the equation by whatever our a is. Okay? So in other words, what our a value is here in standard form, which happens to be negative 5, I'm going to divide the first two terms. Okay? So think of them like ones have like a bracket around them. We're going to divide both of them by a. Okay? So whatever that term is. So it's kind of going to start off like that. So just so we know which two terms they are, we're going to highlight them. We're going to divide those first two terms. What is our a value? Yeah, and it's not that we're getting rid of the negative 5. We're using it as a common factor and taking it to the outside. Okay, so we get equals our common factor, which is negative 5. Very important we still keep that out there. What is negative 5x squared divide negative 5? Yeah. And what is positive 30 divide negative 5?
Negative 6.
Yeah, negative 6x. Okay, because technically there's an x there. Plus 1. Okay. Now this is where we get into a tricky part. The whole point of this, as you would recall this from a while ago, is something called a perfect square trinomial. Okay? And it's what this is. Perfect square trinomial is where we have the square root of the first term and the square root of the second term, sorry, the last term. If we multiply them by 2, they'll equal our middle term. Okay? Actually, there should be an x in there. AB should be 2abx. But anyways, we're trying to create a perfect square trinomial. So in order to do this, we need to remember this little formula we have here. Okay? This little formula is our b divided by 2 squared. Okay, this will be our side calculation. So we're going to make some side calculations here. I'll draw a little line through this. So we're going to have to do quite a few side calculations. Now, I want you to think of this as our new b term, the negative 6. Okay, we're going to be plugging that in. My new b term will be my negative 6. We'll be plugging that in for the b in this little equation. This equation says, we'll do it in blue. We divide negative 6 by 2, and then we square whatever that is. Negative 6 divided by 2 is what?
Negative 3.
Yeah. And negative 3 squared? 9. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add and subtract 9 inside these brackets. Okay, so I'm going to show you that next. So do you understand the 5? I can write that in black now. Does that make sense? Okay. X squared minus 6x. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking my positive and negative 9 and I'm adding 9 and I'm subtracting 9 to the brackets. Now if you add and subtract 9, what's that the equivalent of? 0. So it's like adding 0 to equation. So technically I haven't changed the value of the equation, but I'm changing the way it looks, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. Okay? So we put those two 9s in. Now technically we only need the negative 9. Or sorry, the positive 9. We're going to take this negative 9 out. Okay? When we do that, we have to multiply by whatever term is in front of the brackets, or the a term. So we multiply, in this case, by negative 5 when the negative 9 comes out. It's like thinking of our distributive property, right? Technically, I'd have to distribute all of these in order to drop the brackets. Well, I'm trying to manipulate by just taking 1 out. In order to take 1 out, he still has to be affected by this negative 5. So we have to multiply it by the negative 5 when we pull it out. Okay? So our next line reads negative 5x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now, what was negative 9 times negative 5? What will that equal?
45.
Yeah, so we'll equal plus 45 plus 1. Right? Okay. Now we're going to simplify the outside there. Negative 5x squared minus 6x plus 9. What's 45 plus 1? 46. If we quickly go back, just before we finish this, and look at our other question, I want you to notice we're already extremely similar to this. We already have the 46, we have the negative 5. We just don't have the x minus 3 squared yet. Okay? I'm going to talk about that now. Now, the x minus 3 squared is, technically when I factor this, this is a perfect square trinomial. We have created what we're trying to do. I'm going to show you how to factor it, and then I'm going to show you the fast way to factor it. So think of this just as a proof right now. You don't have to do this every time. I'm just doing it so you understand the idea behind it. So I'm going to factor just the brackets, okay? So I'm going to say I'm just factoring the brackets. X squared minus 6x plus 9. Just factoring that part. I take the factors of the first term, 1x and 1x. Factors of the last term, 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. I'm we know their product has to add up to negative 6x, right? Well, quickly looking at this, I'm going to tell you right now we're going to be using these guys. Okay? And we're going to get 3x and 3x. And in order for it to be negative 6, what will both of them have to be? So in other words, both these 3's will have to be negative terms. Okay? So this will be our first terms in the brackets and our second terms. Is this making sense? We go to put them in our brackets. 1x, or just x, is the first term. And because they're the exact same, it doesn't matter which bracket. So I get negative 3 and negative 3. But I can simplify that. How else can I write that?
X minus 3 squared.
That's right. So what we've done is we've created, and we did this on purpose, and it's going to work out this way every time. So this was like another side calculation, right? We actually created a perfect square trinomial so that when we factored this part here, we were going to end up with just one bracket squared. It's going to be the same thing. Now, instead of having to do that factoring that we did every time, there is a fast little cheat to this, you could say.
Like signing the first term.
We can do it real quickly, and I'll show you right here. Over negative 5x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus 46, okay? What we're going to do is we're just going to take the square root of the first term, square root of the last term, and find out what those are, okay? So the square root of x squared is just x, right? Square root of 9 is just 3. So we take those two terms, negative 5, we put it into one bracket. This will be the first term we use. That'll be our first term. And this will be the second term in the brackets, okay? So I take my x, and I take my 3.
It's the sign of the middle term.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Sign of the middle term. And we subtract it, okay? And it is squared plus 46. So in the end, I'll write it on black here, in vertex form, negative 5 x minus 3 squared plus 46. There's our answer.